Andrew, thank you.
By answering the question on a personal note, being of Jewish heritage, being a Jew in this community, certainly being turned back would have saved the lives of my great-grandparents and most of their family. But what I truly believe is this, is that if an NDP government had have been in power, if an NDP government would have existed back then, certainly they would not have been turned away. The NDP and its policies about immigration will make sure that all doors are open so that people can get into this country if there is ever a crisis. We have said that we will fast-track sponsorship from disaster areas, and that certainly would have been included should something as terrible, and hopefully it never happens again, something as terrible as an event like the Holocaust.
Thank you. Green Party, Kathy?
I'm going to answer this in two ways. One is Canada has international obligations. We have signed UN charters protecting children. This bill does not protect children of refugees when they come in. They could end up incarcerated, which absolutely is in contravention of the UN Charter protecting children. I think it's very important that Canada respect the international agreements we've already been participating in, and we need to push them on that. And the second component, and this is part of being a Green Party candidate, huge education component. So I'm at the door talking to people, and really, we have a very informed crowd here tonight about these issues. But we are not representative of our community in that way. So when I'm at the door, I need to bring these issues up as much as possible. Will it change how the government operates? Perhaps not. Will it enlighten them in terms of what the government is trying to do? I hope so. That's how I'm going at it. So there's a big educational component that has to happen. Canadians need to learn that what they're told is what this bill is about isn't true. It's very, very difficult territory because as a Green Party member too, I'm fighting the same battle on the climate change front, I'm fighting the same battle on the healthcare front, on the military front. So a tremendous amount of education has to happen in order for people to move and make their vote count.
Okay, thank you.
Quick note that people were talking about people having to come on boats. It never says in the bill that they have to come on boat. It's just any group of more than 5 people. I believe it's 5, which could be a family if you think about it. And that the smuggler itself, is it 2 people? That's more than 1. Okay, right. 2 or more. There we go. And that the smugglers don't actually have to make any money, so they don't actually be taking advantage of anybody. It's not in the bill that has to happen. Anyway, my question is, part of what this bill has been built on is a little bit of what Andrew Telegdi was talking about, and this is for all the candidates. How will you personally, as members of Parliament, and how will your parties combat the negative stereotyping and rhetoric that is used, queue jumpers, bogus refugees, that is increasingly becoming part of regular talk about vulnerable people?
Okay, Peter, do you want to start?
I've talked about the different foods they bring with them, about the different struggles that they've gone through. Holocausts have happened all around the world in many different forms. They've happened recently in Darfur, they've happened in Rwanda, they've happened in Germany in the 1940s. The reality is that this kind these kind of things happen everywhere, and when we get beyond the language of us versus them, and I think that's something that the NDP has been working towards more inclusive language, recognizing that it doesn't matter your skin color, your religion, your creed, doesn't matter anything. You're still a human being, and you deserve to be treated like a human being with a full set of human rights. And that's very, very important. That a full set of human rights means more than just property and life. It means having the ability, the right to housing. It means the right to food. It means so much more than just a couple of things. And when we move beyond that language, I think we can go a whole lot further.
Thanks, Peter. Byron, did you want to respond to that?
Sentiments just expressed by Peter. Let me answer the question this way. One thing that all of us have probably had to combat in this election, I mean, I'm a political neophyte, unlike most of the people up here, and what's amazed me so far, not just watching how the media has covered the election so far, but also even just canvassing from door to door, is the extent to which the Conservatives are playing a politics of fear in just about every kind of... the manifestations of this are absolutely everywhere, right? It's not just the obvious cases like immigration. The perceived need to build super prisons couldn't happen unless you scared people into thinking, contrary to the facts, that crime is in fact on the up in this country. It's not. Even the issue of strategic voting, I find, involves, in many cases, an appeal to fear. What I'm telling people is, when I go door to door, is I'm trying to get them to see the wisdom of voting in accordance with your beliefs and your heart and your conscience and so on, and to refuse to respond to the politics of fear. The problem with fear is that when people are fearful, they reach for mechanisms of control and repression. And when societies reach for mechanisms of control and repression, that shuts down intellectual and social development. It's a way for a people to stagnate intellectually, socially, and morally. Now, this is what's happening with the Conservative government. It's the way they are defining our political discourse. The immigration and refugee debate, Bill C-49 and so on, is just one manifestation of it. It's something we have to fight vigorously, and the Green Party is much more willing to appeal to some other traditional Canadian values, our humanitarianism and our broad internationalism and so on, and that's how we're going to combat this particular assault.
Okay, Byron, thank you.
I agree with you, language does matter, and what we need to bring back to our democratic system is civility. And I would tell you that Mr. Harper does feed on fear, and he practices the politics of creating winners and creating losers. And if all of your policies as a government are based on niche marketing for whoever's vote you're trying to court at that period in time, what we do is reduce people to voting blocks, which is why I would go back to saying that liberals believe a Canadian is a Canadian is a Canadian, and that we do share values and we do share a compassion and we do care about our fellow man. I want to point out that the minority government that Andrew and I were part of with Paul Martin worked very well with all other parties in the House. Mr. Harper has chosen to proceed as a minority government acting like they were a majority. And he hasn't looked for areas of cooperation. I was whip in opposition when he first formed a minority government. And he's the one that came in with a 200-page book of dirty tricks and disrupted the kind of committee work that used to be leaving partisanship at the door and finding areas of common ground. I was a member of the Foreign Affairs Committee when we did a study of countries of the Muslim world after 9/11 to try to figure out how Western civilization could have missed so horribly this festering anger that seemed to be in some of the radical Muslim fundamentalists. That was an all-party committee. We traveled around the world. It's a wonderful, thoughtful document. That kind of research, that kind of empirical evidence is not something that drives Mr. Harper's agenda. It's not evidence-based decision-making, it's ideology. It's wrong, and that is scary. Anything but Liberal members of Parliament have raised this in question period and questioned Jason Kenney, and we've spoken out against Bill C-49. So we've very actively been pursuing a different route that more reflected Canadian values and questioned the government at every opportunity.
Okay, NDP?
Right from the get-go, the NDP had something to say with respect to the fact that they were being detained in essentially prisons in the lower mainland of British Columbia. We were quick to point out that that wasn't right, that it was simply unacceptable. There's a distinction to be made that is not being made in Bill C-49. That's the distinction between a refugee and a human smuggler, between someone who's smuggling. There's also a distinction between someone who is a victim of trafficking, someone who is a smuggler, and what we found, Minister Victaves, who is the Minister of Public Safety, would often flip back and forth between the term human trafficker and human smuggler. There's a very distinct difference, and each human smuggler and human trafficker, there are different ways to deal with each of those, and certainly victims of human trafficking are different from refugees. And I think it's important, again, with respect to the language, that we not fall prey to the language of fear and try to blend some of these terms together when there's really different ways to approach each individual or group of individuals.
Okay, good clarification. Thank you. We have a question up here. Sorry, can we have the mic up here?
I can yell too, it's okay. We're talking about people who get on a boat because they have no access or no knowledge of the appropriate pathways. So my question to you is, what will your government do to deal with the root cause? What will you do to ensure that immigrants know of and have access to the appropriate immigration channels?
Okay, good question. Andrew?
Well, first of all, refugees are not immigrants. Immigrants have access to apply from outside of the country to come to Canada. Refugees are people who are in danger for their lives, they're in danger of persecution. And for them it's very difficult for them to get to Canada. You don't walk into a Canadian embassy and say, I would like to apply to be a refugee. And that's where the problem lies. Some cases you have refugees who go to refugee camps. Like in the case of my family, we left Hungary, we went to Austria, and we were able to apply to come here as refugees. When Chile, when Pinochet took over in Chile, they had very difficult time to get to Canada to apply for, to become refugees, and Canada ended up taking in something like 50,000. But now, if the same situation were to exist coming from South America, they would be stopped in the United States of America. And back at that time, the United States of America, if they caught a Chilean refugee, they would be likely to send them back to Chile. And in many cases, it would end in death and torture. So for a refugee, it's difficult to get here. Now, if you if you get to this country, if you get inside this country, you can apply for refugee status. And you know, you're not going to get there by boarding an airplane and saying, I'm going to Canada. You're going to end up having to come with a false passport. You have to fool the officials that you can get to Canada so you can declare refugee status. And the other way that you can get in is by boat. Now, the European countries have and you can see what's happening now in North Africa. A lot of Libyans are fleeing by the tens of thousands by boat to get to Italy, and they're in the EU. But our situation is, you know, we don't have those issues because very few people come here by, let's say, by boat, and they do to Europe.
Bill?
Something goes wrong and then money is lost. So I would say that that is really key, important action in making sure that we use international treaties and making sure that we enact laws here at home so that we make sure that the immigration process is as honest as possible.
Okay, Kathy?
Well, I like your question. We're creating another batch of refugees. We're doing that right now. So our foreign policy has to be more balanced than it has been. So we talk about the 3 Ds: diplomacy,